Hey, Eric.
Hey, Shelly, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
All right. You make it home
Good.
okay?
Yeah, I did. Did you?
Yeah.
No.
It was really slick. Holy crap.
Yeah, it was. Like it came really fast.
Yeah. It was like I have a couple roundabouts by me and I was sliding my way around those.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Jason. Hi, Cheryl.
Hello.
Realized I was muted. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Evening, Melinda.
Hey, Jason. I hope it's not just the two of us.
It isn't.
I'm on here as well.
Oh, okay. You're just invisible.
Yes, the snow's making it longer to get home from work, so I dialed in on my phone.
Oh,
Well, safe travels. It's coming down fast.
It is. I'm getting close though, so then I can switch to my laptop, but I didn't want to miss
need to talk to the Department of Transportation about that, huh?
it.
By the way, that was a very interesting presentation on the historic bridges at the conference.
Which conference, Melissa?
That was the Colorado Preservation conference last week.
Oh, nice.
There you are.
Hello. Yeah, my computer's being kind of slow tonight, so.
So is mine.
So we do have a quorum, so anytime you want to start off, we can get going and note if anybody, when everybody else pops in.
Okay, oh, here comes Cash.
Hi guys, just figuring out my video here, stand by.
Okay,
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Cash.
Yes.
all right, we're almost all here. So let's come to order then. I make it 6:33. And I suppose we should start with a roll call.
Yep, I can do that. Chair Ellswick,
Here,
Jason O'Brien,
Here.
Lauren Cooper,
Here.
Cash Parker,
Here.
Matt Crabtree,
Here.
CJ Cullinan is not here as of yet. Mary Miles.
Here.
All right. Welcome aboard. And then just for the record, show that Eric Sampson and Madeline Hinkfuss are present for staff, and Cheryl Wink is present for as a city council liaison. Okay, so you can take it away.
all right. Our first item, as usual, is approval of the minutes of the January 19th meeting. I did have an edit to that. I'm not sure but anybody else noticed, but it says Councilmember Wink was there at the meeting, and I don't recall that she was present then. Did I miss something?
She was not.
Yeah, so yeah, we can change that.
Okay,
I'll make that edit.
Thank you.
I do appreciate you all giving me credit where I didn't deserve it, though.
well, we welcome you now.
Thank you very much.
I move to approve the minutes with the reflection with the correction in the attendance.
I'll second that.
As I was not present during that meeting, I will be abstaining.
All right, and all others in favor, which I guess is the four of us that were present, can say aye to indicate.
We can just run down and do a roll call. So
Okay.
Melinda,
Aye.
Lauren,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Cash,
Aye.
and CJ is absent. And Matt,
Abstain.
thank you. And then Mary,
Abstain.
thank you. Okay, thank you.
All right. And there doesn't seem to be any public present. So we'll move on to our old business. The much awaited neighborhood maps. once I finally found it on the city's webpage, I do see you have been making changes, Matt.
That is correct. We've done a lot of work. I want to first start off and thank Madeline and Eric for their help and insight. We had a couple sessions where we kind of went through things and reviewed some of the input that we received from the community. I think it's still a bit of a work in progress. There's a few other things that need to be kind of double checked from the community input, but I think it's gone pretty well. I am just trying to get that up right now. Let's see here.
Matt, do you want me to put that map in the chat?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm going to share my screen. See what's the easiest way to do this. There. There. And if everybody's okay, I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to share this browser. Okay, everybody see the correct browser?
Yep.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Always want to fear get the wrong screen on there. All right, so we have received a lot of input from the community. And actually, I don't want to take this away from Madeline here. If you wanted any introduction on this or any kind of other information, I'll give you the opportunity first.
No, I don't have much of an introduction. I was looking at this map earlier, and when you look closely, it's much easier to decipher than when you look really far away.
That's correct.
So it's really not as overwhelming as it looks.
Okay, so everything with the name revised next to it is revised boundaries. It's a little bit hard right now to go through and cross-check all the changes. But I think what we'll do is we will start at this area. One of the comments that was received, survey results. One of the comments that was received was that we should not call industrial areas. Reality is in this particular zone here, and then subsequently on the other side of the city, this area here, were called industrial areas. I believe there are a few housing units in that area, but thinking towards the future here, we there's kind of a negative connotation to the industrial name of sorts. Mm-hmm. So it's been a bit of a challenge finding names to correlate with those areas. So Wyandotte was one that was prominent in this one. What we've tried to do is stay away from naming anything after an active business. And what we're finding from the Arapahoe County map is that there are a number of developments that are named after current businesses in those areas. So you have, for instance, the Dartmouth Industrial Park, which is a large portion of this area. We have the Sheridan subdivision, which is kind of bleeds over a little bit here. I don't think that would fit, have Sheridan in there. So, and then Englewood Storage subdivision. So the thought here was to go with the next most prominent name, which was the Wyandotte subdivision. So I don't know. This is where it gets difficult, right? There's no exacting kind of scenarios with some of these areas. So this was an idea simply because actually there's Vista Heights is already here. It's very prominent up in this portion. This is more of a residential area. This is all commercial. So hopefully that fits. That was a revised. I think.
Matt, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What was that neighborhood called before?
Prior to this, that was, and I'll bring that up. That was maps. second here. Okay, so that subdivision was called before. It was called Platte River Industrial. So,
I mean, what about just like Platte River West or something? Because I see Platte River South on the other side. You know, what about kind of keeping that Platte River and just replacing or taking away the industrial part?
I like that idea. Let me make note of that. Any other input on that from folks here?
We still have the industrial north over there, don't we? And that's a lot of residential.
Sure, we still. Let's see that. Yes, Platte River North.
Yeah, I like the idea of it being Platte River North sounds, or Platte River West sounds better than Englewood Industrial North.
Okay, well, let me take a peek here at the other one, because thank you, I missed that, Englewood Industrial North. South Lana Estates. According to the Arapahoe County subdivision map, we have in this area, we have the Canfield subdivision, Downey subdivision, Tejon subdivision, Family Auto subdivision, Englewood Industrial Park, Yale Tejon, and Vallejo Bates Industrial Park, the Fischenbach Industrial Park, and the Natkin Industrial Park.
I guess maybe they are all industrial. The Evans and South Lana Estates is where the residences begin.
I do believe so. Now, Madeline, would you do you have access to the number of housing units right now in that area?
I can bring up that spreadsheet if you just give me 30 seconds.
Sure, thank you. Now, one of the comments received from the community on this. Let me bring this up here. Let's see. Actually, I'm not sharing my entire screen. I'm going to stop sharing real fast and change to share on the whole screen. Stand by. Screen number 2. Share. All right. I got my whole screen. So if I bring this over here, I've categorized some of the input for the community. And I'm going to do a search real fast here because I remember this one. Goat Hill was one of the names that was, if I can type, there we go, Goat Hill. So this person commented from the Logandale neighborhood. And commented that, yes, the area north of Dartmouth and east of the Platte River is called Goat Hill by residents who have grown up there. That would be a preferable name to use, using the industrial moniker. I've heard it called Goat Hill in this area. It was kind of, I don't know if everybody, I mean, that would actually fill kind of technically, I believe, this whole area. So they had mentioned area north of Dartmouth. Actually, technically it'd be right here. North of Dartmouth. And east of the Platte River. Well, actually, that's this area right here, according to their definition. But I've heard this area in general here, kind of the finger of Englewood that goes off into Denver here. I've heard this referred to as Goat Hill. I don't think that would stick very well though with the community there. Completely subjective though. Goat Hill was also, I think, kind of referred to as a negative, kind of a negative connotation of that area. So I don't know what everybody's opinion of that is.
Yeah, and I note the person who said, yeah, we called it Goat Hill, does not live in that neighborhood. So
That is correct. Yes.
yeah.
So we may keep this one in Englewood Industrial North. I'm going to keep kind of keep that on the list here.
Yeah, and maybe the other thing with the Goat Hill, again, it's kind of, not many comments towards that. Then I also know since it shares with Sheridan, kind of Sheridan has stuff that refers to their stuff as Goat Hill too. So kind of differentiate Englewood neighborhoods from, Sheridan stuff. I think it's worth maybe avoiding that comment.
Agreed. While we're on the topic of interesting names, there was an area over here near Forest Hill that was a recommendation to call that Donkey Ditch. Probably not. So this one here, I agree with you. I agree with you entirely, Lauren. I think possibly Platte River West. I mean, the wastewater treatment plant is in Platte River South, probably right about there. This would be, I mean, that would actually make sense. This is a heavily industrial area there. While Madeline is looking up the residential units in this one.
I do have them up. So which neighborhood would you like to?
Englewood Industrial North.
Englewood Industrial North. Okay, so the total number of housing units is 1, according to the spreadsheet.
Do you think they would mind being called Englewood Industrial North?
That is a question for all of you. I think it sounds great.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a concern with that. Anybody else worried about that? I mean, I'm pretty sure one house in an industrial area, they know they live in an industrial area.
So
Well, and even in the larger industrial areas, it isn't like they're going to form a neighborhood association.
Right. Sorry, Lauren, go ahead.
I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but I guess I just have a question of if there's only one residence in that neighborhood, why have we designated that specific area a neighborhood?
That is a good question. If you look at Platte River South, a large portion of this is actually city-owned property. And specifically the service center and the wastewater treatment plant. Madeline, is this something we wanted to define every area in the city? That was kind of the original objective here.
That was the original objective, but that's up to you guys and the committee when you guys bring this to council. It is interesting that according to GIS's spreadsheet that there is only one home in there. So I'm not sure if it's areas, neighborhoods, all of the above, but that's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, what it is now seems reflective of, what it is. So I guess.
Yeah.
I don't see any issues that.
Yeah, like I said, I'm fine with it. It just raised the question for me. So but I that's great clarification.
Cool, thank you.
And for instance, General Iron Works, I don't object to that being a neighborhood because the ironworks is gone and this huge ugly development is in there in its place. So
And they are, I believe there's a portion of the subdivision that is being called, commercially called, something about the ironworks or something.
yeah.
Like that. But ironworks came first. I think it's important. And this is actually a pretty, can you see my mouse move or not?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. So I believe that this area, you know, is
Is
reflective
historically the ironworks, yeah.
historically and historically reflected that. So all right, so moving over Yale Heights, we've chiseled out a corner of this and extended Bates Logan across East Bates Avenue. That was a recommendation received from a number of people during the outreach. Obviously, folks that live along Bates here use Bates Logan Park quite often. So they, you know, said that you could walk right across the street. Would make more sense to have this extend further up, so up to Amherst. So this was extended here. Forest Hill neighborhood. We received just a little bit of input on that. Originally, I believe it went to Cornell and Downing, but that would have left a very strange, small, kind of separate neighborhood here. So I believe we were going to reach out and see if they'd be okay with being more inclusive with another block south and another block east. Madeline, did you hear back from anyone from that neighborhood?
Not on the east block, not yet.
Okay. I would assume that it's probably going to be okay. They seem like very nice folks there, and having a little bit more neighborhood to their neighborhood might not be a bad thing. Those did not change. The boundaries of Inglewood, historic downtown Inglewood, were revised to be more reflective just along the just kind of along the existing commercial areas there. The Rose was extended further towards Broadway to include the houses.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Can I offer a comment about Rose and Hawthorne? I live in Hawthorne.
Sure.
And thank you for all your work on this, by the way, before
Absolutely.
I offer my comment. And this is not just me. I've heard this from a couple folks that live in my neighborhood from chatting with them. I'm wondering why there's that split and why it isn't just Hawthorne for the whole thing, or alternatively, Logan and Downing are sort of viewed in this area as the east-west boundaries of the neighborhood. So if not combining that into one and calling it all Hawthorne, which I think is Hawthorne should stay, whether Rose does or not is a different question, or at least extending Hawthorne to Logan, because the way Hawthorne is drawn, it's sort of arbitrarily cutting into an area where it's viewed as a neighborhood.
So interesting enough, the original Arapahoe County records show this as a Rose addition to Inglewood, dating back. Now, it is not a very prominent name, where Hawthorne is a prominent name, and arguably the Hawthorne subdivision actually was actually just these two blocks here was the Hawthorne subdivision. So we divided Rose along the original lines, with the exception of the area along Broadway here. This was actually called the Bank Edition here on this block, and this was called the Hawthorne. Now, keep in mind, these are subdivision maps, and it's impossible, considering the fact that there are over 300 subdivisions in the city, and I keep saying that it's impossible to name every subdivision as it was, but when areas did have defined lines, we tried to keep that. However, to your point, I think Hawthorne might actually be more appropriate to stretch across, and because that is a very strange delineation that exists here.
Yeah. So that would be my suggestions would be, like I said, either make it all Hawthorne, because that is the more prominent name, and that's a pretty well defined. If you go to Downing and over to just short of Broadway, I guess, if you were to include Rose in it, and then Dartmouth and Floyd as the north-south boundaries, or at least push Hawthorne over to Logan, one of the two.
Mhm.
May I ask the unpopular question?
Sure, please.
Are we losing history for convenience in doing something like that?
Well, that's always the challenge with this. And we'll definitely dig into that a little more deeper here in a little bit when we get over to City Center. Hawthorne Elementary has a lot of history in the city. And if I'm correct, Hawthorne Elementary actually sat in the Hawthorne area here. So there is a lot of known history for Hawthorne. Hawthorne Elementary is now gone, but that aside. Rose, there's some of these subdivisions listed in Arapahoe County have a really long history and a really well-known history. A lot of them don't, and Rose is one that we really can't find a whole lot of information on. I don't know if that answers your question, Councilmember. Probably doesn't, actually. I'm sorry.
It kind of does. So it seems like your methodology is to use, well, part of it is to kind of give preference to the more established historic records where, you have so many decisions to make, obviously. You're at least trying to have that be the, a deciding piece. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's fine.
Yes, that is correct. And so many people I've talked to about this, they said, well, according to Arapahoe County, when I look at the assessor's page, or according to my deed, or according to this, it shows that I'm not in that neighborhood. Well, and that's the difficult part of this, is that the original objective was to just create the original, call all the subdivisions neighborhoods. And that very quickly became extremely difficult. I mean, I'll bring this back over here. And
there, yeah.
The amount of original subdivisions in the city is extraordinary. And then you have situations like, probably one of the coolest names out of any of them. Let's see if I can find it here. As I'm talking about it. Where's it at? Where's it at? Oh my gosh. Oh, Loganhurst. As soon as it looks, Loganhurst. That is a really cool name. Unfortunately, that subdivision consists of 2 houses. So
I see what you're saying. Okay.
and I'm like, I really wanted to call something Loganhurst. And actually, I used to know the guy that lived right on the corner here. So in fact, he had t-shirts made because he lived in Loganhurst, Inglewood, and was rather disappointed that we didn't call a neighborhood after Loganhurst. And I'm like, I don't know how we can do that. So
I appreciate that context. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, back on topic here. So, I can certainly look at extending Hawthorne over and see what that looks like. Madeline, did we get any input from the community from either Rose or Hawthorne that you're aware of?
I can take a look at that right now, but nothing that is sticking out to me as we were reviewing that over the last month. So let me take a look.
I see one entry from my spreadsheet here on Rose, and they were talking about
I don't know if this matters, but I have reached out, or our neighborhood group leader did reach out to me in the Rose, Hawthorne, and what is right under Hawthorne?
right underneath Hawthorne was previously Swedish Craig.
Swedish Craig, and they actually were talking about starting a neighborhood group for all 3 of those boundaries. So I'm not sure if that matters. That is kind of a large area.
Well, Cash, to your point, this individual that lives in Rose says an example of why I think the proposed neighborhoods are too small, considering Rose where I live. I have a young child, so every day we walk a couple of blocks in any given direction, and though many people live in the radius, boy, they really go into a lot of detail here. But basically, they're saying that smaller neighborhood for them doesn't make quite as much sense. So that's actually a really interesting comment there. So we'll look at Hawthorne over and possibly include Rose in there. As we're moving down here, received a lot of input about Swedish Craig. Let's see here. Swedish Craig. One individual says, because this area here was previously, before it was revised, was Swedish Craig in its entirety there. One individual says, I'm disappointed that Swedish Craig has been chosen as the name of our area. All other areas have lovely names that bring to mind neighborhood feel. Good job. Why must ours reflect a for-profit organization? There was another individual, I'm not going to read their comments because it was quite pointed. But they were not a fan of supporting the Swedish Craig name. A couple people actually recommended that this be called Old Town, as the original Inglewood area went along Hampton. Taking that input, not seeing much of another option on the original subdivision map from Arapahoe County, I consider this area possibly Old Town. What do you think? So the light purple area here.
And that's all along Old Hamden.
Well, Old Hampton goes through here, and which goes right down. Now, the area in darker purple, I've renamed to Wellness District, based upon some of the feedback received from the community, and also to be in line with a lot of the development that is being planned in that area. I don't know if there's any strong opinions on that. So the actual Swedish Craig area would be called Wellness District, and the residential area that backs up to it being Old Town.
Part of that residential area is also, or is it on Grant that has the historic overlay zoning?
I do believe that there is a historic overlay that exists on Grant. I don't recall if it, actually, I think you may be right. I think it's right near St. Louis Catholic Church.
Yeah, it's like the neighborhood preservation overlay.
Yeah, NPO.
Yeah.
So any opposition to naming this Old Town instead of Swedish Craig and removing the Swedish Craig moniker from this area and calling that the Wellness District?
No, I think that'll keep the historic overlay people happy too. So,
Sure. Now, Madeline, is there a way to remove some of the layers here? Because I think there's a bunch of layers going on here. Because we've got stuff that's
Yeah, so if you look in the right-hand corner above Find My Neighborhood, there's that layer button. So it looks like GIS kept all of those layers on there with the revised and the old ones.
interesting. Okay, well, that makes it a little bit more difficult to show, but I do recall what I did here. So Mansfield Heights now goes up to, I've got my other scratch map here that I'm just going to scratch pad. Mansfield Heights now goes from Jefferson 285 here down to Nassau. There is a So we've shrank South Broadway Heights to this size here. While technically Arapahoe County did not have any indication of the Cheralyn neighborhood or Cheralyn in itself, it's not on any of the maps or any of the information we can find officially of subdivisions. This is commonly called the Cheralyn area here. So that's one of those situations where this is probably more historically Cheralyn than it is actually documented as Cheralyn by Arapahoe County. Any input or feedback on specifically these three changes?
Nope, not for me.
I like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I live in Sherilyn, so yeah, and Quincy is definitely like a kind of a boundary line for when we take walks and stuff. So that makes sense there.
Great. All right, and so moving across Broadway here, we've revised some of this over on this side of town. Jason Park goes more east-west at this point, based upon a lot of the input and discussions that we received here. So this is, oops, okay, this is Jason Park here. Includes Jason Park, goes more east to west, seems more supportive of what the area is being kind of considered the feel of it. This neighborhood is called Rotolo, after Rotolo Park. That's a new neighborhood that was added in here as another delineation. Another benefit of these changes that were made is this applies a little bit more of the logic that was originally requested by Sean Lewis, City Manager Sean Lewis, to keep the neighborhoods in the 400-ish household kind of number.
You seem to recall there were a lot of comments about Jackson Broadway Heights, though.
There was.
That some that were said, no, I don't live in Logandale, I live in Jackson Broadway Heights, and things like that.
Madeline, do you have record of any of that that we can bring up quickly to kind of?
Yeah, let me take a look. I do. So we have Jackson Heights on here. While Jackson Broadway Heights has some historic significance, there isn't really any concrete history provided to justify this neighborhood being so large and having this name. As someone who lives near Jason Park, it feels more relevant to the neighborhood. I live 2 blocks from Jason Park, and this feels more relevant to the neighborhood. That was 2 comments. Those are the Jackson Heights comments, but I think, Melinda, you're referring to one from Logandale. So let me find that comment.
Yeah.
Says, my neighborhood has always been Jackson Broadway Heights, and that's what I will call it. That person, it looks like, lives in Logandale.
And what makes this the most difficult is this is literally the definition of design by committee. That makes it really hard. I tend to, so obviously before this whole area was, I believe it was Jackson Broadway. I'm going to check my old map here. So prior to, there was a move this real fast. So prior to, there was a neighborhood. Where's that? That's Carmel Park. That's much lower. Oh, bye.
Well, the Sanborn maps, I know, it showed Jackson's Broadway Heights, but it's quite a large area too. That
Jackson Broadway Heights was originally, according to the last revision, was this area right here. It basically went from here on to Broadway, and from Oxford down to Tufts. That is correct. There is some historical significance to Jackson Broadway Heights. However, we received a lot of input that Jason Park, that this area was now more considered Jason Park. And this is the struggle that happens. Do we push for the historic name over what the common significance? Jason Park is very much the center of this neighborhood over here. There's a lot of influence in there. You know, it's the fact that dog park, the amount of people that have stepped up and commented about the dog park and all that, I think. And the people that commented on this would more associate with Jason Park in this area than it would be actually Jackson Broadway Heights. So originally Jason Park was along this line here, up here on, and then this was that was Jason Park here, and that was Jackson Broadway Heights over here. So what are our thoughts about that? Are we okay with this change, or do we want to try to eye more towards the historic subdivision name?
I mean, I'll say that, I mean, I guess consistent with my comments earlier about Hawthorne and Rose, if folks in that neighborhood view it in a certain way and think that, you know, that area should be called Jason Park, I would defer more to that over historic subdivisions, because then it has a greater chance of sticking and being used.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just because it's, you know, there is a history there. It might not be the history we're seeing, but there's a history of that neighborhood and how they feel and how they have that cohesion together. So yeah, I think I'm fine with it the way you've revised it.
It's a very careful balance here. There's a lot of history, and we don't want to forget that, but we also want this to be adopted and used, right? So.
Well, and no matter what we do, somebody's going to be upset over it. So we just want the maximum number of happy people off of this, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rotolo has a lot to do. So this neighborhood here, Rotolo, has a lot to do with the fact that that's Jason Park and this is Rotolo Park. Looking at the original map for the area, subdivision map in that particular area, there's not a whole lot of defined area there. I believe. Get to the right spot here. So it's a jog over, smaller jog. Woolen Weber's is a prominent name in that area. Woodman's appears DeVolt, and very small Barton Heights. We could go with a more historic name in this neighborhood, or we could just stick with park name. There's actually quite rates over here. I think this should line up pretty well here. Interesting names in there. You know, in talking with Councilmember Lewis about this, I'm sorry, Councilmember. Ooh, long day. City manager, talking with City Manager Lewis on this. He mentioned to, where possible, use the most interesting names. And as original subdivisions have a lot of interesting names in Englewood. So Rotolo Park there kind of seems like a very generic or basic name, but wanted to get your guys' opinion. I know this kind of turned into a bit of a working session here, but I really do appreciate the input. This is hugely beneficial.
Chicken Ranch Estates, I never saw that one before.
Probably not going to call it that.
Yeah, no, that's just one of those interesting names.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is that we have to be kind of careful with some of the names in here because it can be quite interesting. So we've got the option of leaving it Rotella Park, calling it after a park in that area, which complements the adjacent park area, or we call it something that is more of the historic, but I don't have, that's another thing here too, is these names don't really have any historic significance that I can find. I mean, obviously there was a developer involved. There was some reason for the name, but the actual foundation of history behind these, I mean, other than Jason Park being formerly a ranch, that's pretty well known in this area here, but
Yeah, it seems like a lot of just generally people's comments enjoyed having their neighborhoods related to the parks that kind of centered. So that's all.
I can kind of leave that open for further kind of thought or discussion, so we're not holding things up here, but potentially, you know, that's one area that I think we could possibly find a more creative name. But, we did receive input. There's an old farmhouse over here, and actually it would be in the Bellevue Park area, right bordering there. One of the individuals said Whitaker would be a more appropriate name. However, we received a lot of input that actually this is Leland. So we got a few changes here. So Leland Sunset Heights, this one's been deleted, and now this has become all of Bellevue Park in here. The folks in this particular area had commented that they were so close to Bellevue Park that it didn't make sense for Bellevue Park to be its own very specific area, that would be more supportive of having Bellevue Park as this whole subdivision. There was a single individual that identified a historical significance to a name that we found on the original map, called Whitaker, and I believe the house is somewhere in this area here. And Whitaker was a farm that encompassed a lot of this area here. As Carmel was kind of a basic name that was waiting for a new, better name here, when this was made into Bellevue Park and this entire area, suggested that this become Whitaker, the Whitaker neighborhood down here, which, while not technically part of the original Whitaker area, it does give historic kind of remembrance to that name. Leland Heights, this is more appropriate to its size and area. I believe Leland Heights is in this part of town here. So one of the inputs we did receive is, should we be naming any neighborhoods after the schools that are in there? We could call this the Clayton neighborhood instead of Leland. I don't know if there's any ideas or thoughts on that one.
Well, schools can change their names and sometimes do.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah, my question was, do we know why it's called Clayton? You know, what is there significance or history behind that? I mean, obviously there's some reason, but
there is a historical significance behind all the names, yes. And I don't remember Clayton specifically. Doug Cohn would actually be a good one to reach out on that one. Yeah, I don't know what the history is there.
I mean, I'm fine with Leland Heights. Yeah, because kind of like Melinda said, they can change names, and yeah, I think our when we started out, our goal was to kind of try to stay true to the subdivision names themselves. So if that area closely aligns with actual subdivision boundaries, then that, you know, that makes sense.
Okay, it does.
Yeah.
The other one was now the Belle Isle. And I don't know, it's just a little bit of a risk there, but there is actually a Belle Isle Gardens subdivision within this area. There wasn't anything predominant. Actually, there's a lot of Belle Isle association and original names here. Now, there's a lot of industrial in this area. Madeline, how many houses are in what was previously called the Inglewood Industrial South?
Let me take a look. $409.
There you go. So calling this area Inglewood Industrial South, and that goes to some of the feedback that we received to try to limit or remove the industrial moniker. Belle Isle, we go over here, there's Belle Isle Gardens, Belle Isle Gardens third filing. I believe there's another one over here somewhere. As that loads. Refresh, there we go. But as you can see, it's a bit of a struggle in these areas. You have the Angle subdivision, you have the Navajo Street Industrial Park, you have the Phillips Gallagher subdivision, Stanford Center subdivision, Inglewood Commercial Industrial Center. Not a lot of prominent names in this area. Belle Isle seemed like one of the neatest names, personally. I don't know if there's any input or thoughts on that one.
I just have one thought, is, I don't know how complicated this would be, but maybe look at where the concentrations of the houses are. And if there's, you know, a particular subdivision where there's more houses, maybe that would lend itself to be the name. If that makes sense.
Madeline, do we have that information? That is a really good idea. Especially in areas that are so sparse like this.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, Matt, can you repeat that question?
Sure. Where is the prominent amount of like residential density in what was previously considered Inglewood Industrial South?
That would take a little digging. I
Okay.
can work on that right now, but that will just take some digging to figure that out.
Okay. That's really good. That's really good input there. And thank you, Lauren. I think because I struggle with this one. We don't want to name it anything industrial or commercial for that matter, and that largely comprises the original, according to Arapahoe County, the subdivisions that are in that area. Moving on. No changes here. Okay. Cushing was slightly revised, slightly changed to more match the established neighborhood organization that occurred there. Now this one here is controversial. There were a number of people that said that they did not like the name Cinderella City. I think Cinderella City has a pretty amazing history in the city. If you were to ask me my personal opinion, which I can't necessarily, I really should remove myself from my personal opinion on this. I think it should be called Cinderella City because that was really kind of when Inglewood.
That is really what put Inglewood on the map.
Yeah, I was going to say that's when Inglewood kind of grew up.
Yeah.
And it really,
Although I like the idea of Tuileries too. That's even older than Cinderella City, but
I agree with Cinderella City. I remember my grandfather, that's what he would call it. That's where we would go. It was just, it was the name. It was, that was the area. And I think we were talking earlier about adopting things, and I think that one's been adopted for a very long time.
people still associate that area with Cinderella City.
Yeah,
Still
I mean,
associate it with the drive-ins too. That was the
Yeah.
the epitome of Inglewood before, River Point came along.
yeah, I agree with those comments. As a Colorado native, but not an Inglewood native, Cinderella City was certainly what was associated for many years with Inglewood in a positive way. So that is my personal feeling. However, if it's something that's going to upset a lot of folks in the community, then I understand why we're having the conversation about it. But personally, that's where I come down on it. Is Cinderella City makes sense to me, but I understand why some people don't like it. I mean, looking at the boundaries that are drawn for it now, I mean, do many folks even live in what we're proposing to designate as either Cinderella City or Tuileries?
Yeah, there's a big apartment complex there right next to Walmart.
True.
Right.
Well, in Cinderella City, I mean, it was the whole old, that was old Inglewood. That whole, I mean, that whole section was, that was it. That was Inglewood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that all goes to, Councilwoman Wink's comment of, is it kind of the balancing, keeping history and whether what kind of people look at. And, I think that's part of why this is coming through our commission, is provide that subject matter expertise on some of these things, because there's some people, not everybody's going to be happy with everything, but it's such a, historic name and historic center for Inglewood.
Well, yeah, and even people who don't live in Inglewood or never lived in Inglewood, if you mention Inglewood to them, they go, "Oh, that's where Cinderella City was," right? So that they still associate it, even though it's long gone.
What would be the thoughts of extending the boundary where I mean, I know that there's apartment complexes there now. But why isn't it over? Just a question.
To go up
I don't
further,
know the answer.
to go up further towards Dartmouth, as you're referring to.
No, over, and I don't even know if it's, I'm honestly asking, I don't know if it's part of Inglewood, but where the, like where the drive-in was.
So
The other side of Santa Fe.
So that is right there. Okay, okay.
that is what's really fascinating about this, is that if you look at the map, I believe a large portion of that original drive-in was not even in Inglewood.
That's interesting.
Don't quote me on that, but I think that was actually a discussion that popped up early on in this. Let's see here.
I've never looked it up far enough to find out if that area was in Inglewood. I assumed we never left.
But yeah, I know, I had the same assumption, I think, at some point here, so. Let me bring up Google Maps here. All right, where are we at? Zoom out. Where are we at here? Am I looking in the right spot? 285. Excuse me, got a tickle in my throat there. Havana on the Platte is what's there now, and
Yeah.
that's in this very. Sorry, folks, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I need to step away for a minute. Let me get a LaCroix. I'll be right back.
When I see we have carved Scarrett's neighborhood out of something there. I like that.
Okay, sorry about that. You know, I get a tickle in my throat trying to talk here. All right, so the Scarrett's neighborhood, yes. Let me go back to the original one. Prior to that, we had Cinderella City going across 285, which actually was probably a terrible idea. So it's hard to delineate past 285 there. And then Logandale went one block up into this. So we brought this down. And then define this as the Scarrett's neighborhood, as that is actually recorded as a neighborhood.
Well, and Scarrett's original house is there on Bannock.
Yep.
Right, so.
And it is actually recorded as a subdivision, as bring us over here. It's called Scarrett's Edition.
Ah,
Scarrett's Edition. So I think that's probably the most prominent name in Englewood from a historic standpoint. So calling this area Scarrett's neighborhood, I think would be appropriate. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I think a few little changes still to be made, but overall, I think that's the that's kind of where we're at. What's everybody think?
I think that's a huge amount of work.
I was
Thank you
thinking
so
that
much.
same thing. Yeah, thank you, Matt.
Yeah. And you know, the thing that I keep thinking about with this is that I'm trying to base this not to be subjective. There is a level of subjective to this, and I don't think there's any way around that. However, at least we have a lot of evidence to show that these are actual names, and there is history and work done behind this. Is everybody going to be happy with it? Probably not. But I think it's a pretty good start. Councilmember Wink, what is your opinion thus far?
I love the volume and quality of work you all are doing, and I'd love to keep quiet and let you continue doing your work without my input. But I think it's great. Look, you're trying to strike a balance, and it's tricky. You have a lot of pieces to consider for each decision, and it seems to me you're doing your best to maintain some kind of consistency in your consideration of metrics that you're using to make your decision. So I say kudos. I'm so impressed.
Well, good. All right. Thank you for that. All right. Well, I'll get off my soapbox now. I think that's about it for the moment. Chair Ellswick, is there any other input that you'd like to get from this, or any other comments?
I think we're and I mean, this has been your assignment, and you'd probably like to hand it off, but you're the one that really knows where everything's in there. If there's still a few changes to make, I would hope you would stick with it for a while.
Yeah, and it has been kind of difficult because it was something that I helped with early on, and then other people took it over, and then it came back, and then it went to a couple other people, and back and forth. So this has been a large project that a lot of people have touched.
Yeah. Well, and you also have access to a lot of the historic Englewood great minds to also fill in the blanks on some of these. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I got.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Matt. You put a lot of hard work into this, so thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we had, I'd hoped to hear a progress report from Pinyon Environmental on their survey.
Yeah, so I spoke with Ashley, and they had a couple staff turnovers, and then they got hit with some COVID. So they're a little bit behind on the draft, but she's still expecting that to have that done by at the end of February. So, and after that, hopefully present to you guys, and then do some public engagement stuff, hopefully when it gets a little bit warmer out, like April or so.
Yeah.
But that is where that is at right now.
Okay, we'll have to contain our disappointment here. So the next item was how we present the thank you letter to Councilmember Cuesta for his patience with us during his term with us.
Yeah, so the city manager's office reached out to Dave, and he did respond with and provided his personal email. So I figured what you guys could do is kind of talk amongst yourselves and pick somebody who you'd like to reach out to Dave and see if you can get something coordinated where he could come to the HPC meeting, be presented with the letter of appreciation, and have that read into the minutes.
All right. Yeah, let's discuss.
I don't mind reaching out to Dave since I put the letter together. If Eric, you give me his email.
Yep, absolutely.
And shall we see if he can come next month?
Sure. I think that would be great.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. And presumably we'll still be virtual, but then he knows where to find us. Right, so he can attend as a citizen. Because I think we've all read the letter that's drafted, and we have no modifications to make to that, I believe.
Yeah, and Eric, we discussed this last month. You don't need anything else from me. You can get it on the appropriate letterhead for HPC and all that.
Yep.
Great.
All right. On to new business then. Jason and I have been the chair and vice chair for 2 years now. And we're not allowed to, by our bylaws, continue in those positions. So we need to elect new officers.
I can't believe it's already been 2 years.
Well, and I can certainly understand why nobody wants to volunteer. And certainly, like Matt, I know with being the president of the historic Inglewood, you've got plenty on your plate already. Although I'd love to nominate you for it, but that I would also understand if you're take one step back. Don't you know that?
Well, I'd be willing to give it a try as the chair for this. How much work is it actually, is time wise during the week for you?
Tell him the truth, Melinda.
Not a whole lot. Basically, it's coming up with the agenda every month. And Eric will nag you about that.
Yes, I will.
So,
so yeah, I'd be willing to put my hat in for chair or co-chair, either one. But I don't know, Cash, what do you think? Would you want to put your hat in too?
No, if you're willing to accept the nomination, I'll nominate you for chair.
How about co-chair?
Is that possible under our bylaws?
well, yeah, we do need a vice chair, and of course, Jason is eligible not as to be vice chair. He's eligible to be chair.
Well, and I don't want to step on Jason by any means too. So if you
Well,
No, that's okay. And you know, I like serving and stuff, but the other thing I would kind of note is I'll likely be moving this year, and I'm not sure if I'll be in Inglewood. You know, I don't know exactly where I'd be, so that's kind of the only issue on my end for those things. But
Well,
don't
and,
know where I'll
Lauren
end
has
up.
already served as chair for her 2 years, so she's ineligible. So let's have a slate of candidates of Matt and Cash. What does everyone think about that?
And I would say for Cash, since being vice chair, Melinda's pretty much handled it all. So I mostly just kind of hang out in emergency situations if they come up.
You can't fly on the same plane, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I worked in a job like that once that they wouldn't let us.
But yes,
Um,
I'm more than happy to do that. And then, I know sometimes, Matt, you have, like I do, sometimes have work commitments, and I can back you up when you're gone on work commitments and so forth.
All right, and in May, my wife is expecting, so.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So that I might have to take a little time away from that, from the Historic Preservation Commission to tend to that.
Well, that is permitted.
But otherwise, I'd put my name in for chair if I
Sure. So do you need a formal nomination then, Melinda?
Yep.
All right, I nominate Matt Crabtree to serve as chair.
So we should have I think we can do it both in one motion. Just nominate Matt as chair and Cash as vice chair, and then if we can just get a first, second on that, and then a vote.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll nominate Matt as chair and myself as vice chair.
and I'll nominate you as vice chair. How's that?
And I will second those nominations. We're still allowed to do that, right?
I think that's the appropriate method. I'm actually not entirely sure. Eric, help us out.
Yeah, no, that's I think you're absolutely correct.
So the other remaining members of the commission, I guess, are the ones that vote on this slate of candidates.
You need to
And,
do a
and
roll.
Mary,
Yeah,
although you're new, I think you get a vote.
Yep.
Can I just say agree?
Yes,
do you
we'll
need
do a
to-
roll call vote.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just go down the list. Melinda,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
Lauren,
Aye.
Cash,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
CJ is absent, and Mary.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, Matt and Cash.
Hey,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. So when does this become official? Is it
Like now.
tag or
Yeah.
there's no desk in City Hall for me. I mean, all right, so I guess it's official and I take over from here. Is that that's the plan you said, Eric?
Yep.
Okay, well, moving on to now we're at new business, new member introduction. I believe we have a new member, Mary. I'd like to say hi and welcome you to our commission.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself to the rest of the commission?
Yes, so I am both a Colorado native and an Englewood native. Born and raised, I guess, based off of the map we just drew, in the Romans Park area. As an Englewood native, though, we definitely called it Mushroom Park instead. But having grown up here and watched my grandfather really put everything into it, I have yet to move away, and I'm still very passionate about seeing it grow. So I'm excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, welcome, Eric. Glad to have you on board, and then also, since don't think we had the chance, glad to have you on board, Councilmember Wink.
I second that one too. Councilmember Wink, welcome to our commission and thank you for your input. And and help with the rest of council with our historic matters.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome. I'm really excited about this because I remember my excitement and my involvement in the conversations before we added this as a formal commission. So I'm glad to see the work, to see that we're so far in. I can't believe it's been 2 years either, and I'm happy to engage with you all. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the next topic, staff's choice. Is there anything from Eric?
Nothing from me at this time. I don't know if Madeline had anything.
I do not.
Commissioner's choice. I'll go ahead and start this. So talking of the Inglewood Historic Preservation Society, we have a couple little bits of information that's new. One of which we've decided to change the organization's name. We are now going to be called Historic Inglewood. That's been our domain name since the very beginning. Inglewood Historic Preservation Society was a little bit long for a domain name. And we've heard from a lot of the members of the society that having a shorter name and something maybe a little bit more modern might be a good idea. So we voted as a board to change our name from the Inglewood Historic Preservation Society to Historic Inglewood. So
Perhaps the city will finally learn the difference between the commission and the society.
that was another point actually that was addressed during this, that is as a reason to change the name. So yeah, hopefully the city will now know the difference. And but anyway, yeah, so that took effect at a recent meeting. Technically speaking, the legal name for the organization will still remain as Inglewood Historic Preservation Society, but the doing business as Historic Inglewood. The other news, the Historic Society will not be having a lecture this month, unfortunately. The folks down at Andy and Lisa down at the filling station tap house, unfortunately they closed their doors this last month, and so that caused it's a terrible loss to the community. It's actually was a really neat establishment, but also the Historic Society having their lectures there was it was a great place for it. Unfortunately, we have to find a new location for the lectures. And then with some of the uncertainty with the library, we were not sure if we could schedule a lecture this month. So we were taking a month off from lectures this month, but we'll be back next month with something new and exciting. Let's see. Oh, and Historic Littleton has invited me to do my Tesla Talk speech on the 22nd of March. So if anybody's interested in going,
Where's that at?
I knew you were going to ask that. It is going to be at, there's a name here. Hold on, stand by. It will be at, the Carson Nature Center, 3000 West Carson Drive in Littleton. It's just west of the Aspen Grove Shopping Center. So made a lot of modifications and changes to the Tesla coil. It's a little bit louder, a little bit bigger.
So you are taking the Tesla coil also.
That's the plan, if they'll let me have it there. I still need to talk with the actual location itself, make sure that's okay. Bringing a device that generates 500,000 volts. So you got to sign up on that one ahead of time, I think. All right.
No amps.
No amps.
Yeah.
Micro amps. But anyway, fantastic light show. Councilmember Wink, I don't know if you saw my any of the previous lectures I did on Nikola Tesla, but if you could make it, I think we'd love to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm very interested.
Okay. All right.
We're going to get you to do it at the Mile High Con one year.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. I think
Yeah.
it'd be a big hit. So, still open to that. All right. On to, how about the vice chair? Cash, do you have anything this evening?
I do not. Thank
Okay.
you.
Does anybody else have anything to comment? Melinda?
Well, I attended the Colorado Preservation Conference. Lauren's talk on the historic bridges was very interesting. I heard Jason's boss say what a fabulous historian he is. So and there was actually a great many interesting presentations there, and I'm waiting to catch up to the ones that were recorded that I did not attend in real life, so couldn't attend everything. But they had a hybrid conference this year with some virtual, and the third day was all virtual. And it went well, I thought.
Good. All right, Lauren?
First of all, thank you, Belinda. I appreciate that compliment. I was also obviously at the Saving Places conference, and I started talking to a gentleman from Littleton who he's on their commission, I believe, and he has been doing a lot of research on the city ditch that runs through Littleton and Inglewood. And he had said that the city of Inglewood is planning on piping a portion of the ditch. And I was wondering, that's, a significant change to a significant historic resource. So I was wondering if Eric or if anyone else has information on that, and if that's something we want to learn more about, know more about as the commission, to see what exactly is happening.
You want to take this, Eric?
Sorry, I didn't realize it was still me. Yeah, so I heard about something about this in passing, and I think someone may have submitted a section 106 review, but I need to go back and look at that. Because that would be, if it was a section 106 review, that's not under my purview. So that would be somebody else. So, but I can look into that, and Lauren, I'll reach out to you directly.
Okay.
Just to keep everything quorum friendly.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. If there is a section 106 review involved, we would be the ones to look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, I do have information on this. They actually, I'm sorry, Cheryl.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
So the city of Inglewood submitted for a WIFIA grant, which activated the kind of 106, section 106 review, I believe. Let me double check here because I see it. Interesting enough, yes, it was section 106. And section 106 consultation for the proposed City of Inglewood Drinking Water Modernization Program, Arapahoe County WIFIA program. And they reached out to the Inglewood Historic Preservation Society on this. We informed Historic Littleton about it. Very interesting point though, Lauren, that I think that brings up in this particular matter is why wasn't the Historic Preservation Commission involved in this process also? That is interesting.
Yeah, right, because they're supposed to be identifying parties such as that, so that's the federal responsibility to do that stuff.
I know in the past, the former planning manager had taken all of the 106 reviews and kind of done them himself.
They would have. I'm sorry, Eric.
So one thing to keep in mind, not jumping the gun on itself, but again, in that consultation, it'd be good for others in the city to know that, doing something like piping a historic ditch, depending on what kind of integrity there is, they'll have to, it would likely be considered an adverse effect, typically is. Don't know who the lead agency on that is. I assume, 404, probably Army Corps, which can be hard to work with. But what we should keep in mind is part of if an adverse effect, they have to mitigate that adverse effect through additional steps in section 106. And Laura knows all this stuff, she does it on a daily basis, but and that could be things like, a lot of times they push for just things like archival documentation, but it does not have to be limited to that. It could be things like interpretive signage or, other kind of things, a display in the library or, things like that. When it comes to section 106, the conversation can be pretty wide open on what's appropriate mitigation for those. So I think that's something to keep in mind, that this is a process that they have to go through, and it can be leveraged for helping historic preservation in Inglewood.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
So Eric, if we could get more information as to why this didn't reach the Historic Preservation Commission, that would be hugely helpful. I do know.
Do you know about the time frame when this would have been sent out?
November.
In November. Okay.
I thought it was brought up at one of the commission meetings, actually, right around that time. I'm most certain that I may have brought that up. Does anybody recall this?
We didn't meet in November because we had the open house. So maybe it was December meeting. I didn't attend that one, so I don't know. And my apologies if we did talk about it at that one.
No, but you raise a really good point, Lauren, with the fact that maybe these, because we're receiving the cell tower funds by the Historic Society right now also. And this raises a
Well, we
very,
did that one a couple of years ago.
well, we should have, but the Historic Society is still receiving the cell tower notifications of the historic significance of the structures that they're being placed on. And I think it would be actually beneficial if it did not go to the Historic Society and actually went to the Historic Preservation Commission with those, because it's more of an official capacity of the city. The concern that I would have of any response, and this is what we've talked about before on the society, is that the society is just it's a private organization. It's a nonprofit. There's a lot of liability that could be imposed by responding to, I think it's, what is it, 104 for the cell towers? Is that right, Jason?
106.
Is it
Is that-
106? It is.
Yeah,
106,
yeah.
okay.
And we've kind of talked about this before, but it's that's the purpose of it, is to get input from the community. So there shouldn't be any liability. The point of 106 consultation is to understand more, what are the historic resources, what does the community feel about those resources and the way they might be impacted. So it's beneficial for the process to work better if you do give input back.
Yeah. So I would like to see however that's done, for that redirected from the Historic Society to the Historic Preservation Commission for these, because I think that's a much better place for this.
I mean, and it could also go to both too. It could go to any number of parties. And I mean, it's also, if we're aware of projects, but information isn't coming to us, it's within our capacity to reach out and ask for information, ask to be a consulting party on these projects.
Sure.
So.
Eric, how do we go about that to validate this for them to send this information to the commission?
I'm gonna run this up the poll to the community development director and just make sure we're crossing T's and dotting I's, because I am not familiar with what happened with 106 reviews in the past. They have been done at a higher level than me. So I will have that discussion and let you know anything that I find out about getting you on to a review, being a reviewing party.
Okay. As for the 106 for the WIFA grant that the city of Inglewood was seeking for the city ditch, the Historic Society did comment on that quickly. We just simply identified that as, yes, that will be a significant change to the character of one of the oldest structures found in this area. Technically, the city ditch outdates or predates any other structure built in this area and was largely the reason why this area was developed. At least the history would promote. Historic Littleton took a little more aggressive approach towards it and definitely said that they will fight in any way possible to make sure that that the city of Inglewood is not able to do what they were doing. I believe the outcome of this, from what I'm aware of, and Eric, I'll rely upon you to kind of continue the research, make sure that I'm keeping honest on this one, I guess. But from what I understand is that the city of Inglewood withdrew the city ditch portion from the WIFIA grant, but there is still some sort of attention on piping it. Further than that, I don't have any other information.
Okay. Who would you prefer me to follow up with, Matt, you or Lauren?
I think let's keep everything transparent here if it's possible, and let's let the whole commission know the response on that, whatever the actual response would be on.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, definitely that would happen. But I meant in the meantime, if I have just like a question here or there about the project or some clarification questions, who should I reach out to, you or Lauren, or both? I guess I could reach out to both of you because that would still be within the quorum.
Yeah, it'd be within
regs.
quorum. So
Okay.
Lauren will have a lot more information as it relates to what exactly the mechanics of the section 106 would be.
Okay.
So I'd rely heavily on her for any particular information as related to that. The only information I have was the fact that it was received in November, it was responded to in November by the Historic Society, and I guess I never really considered why it was not received by the Historic Preservation Commission.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Well, at
Interesting.
least Littleton's fighting it.
Yeah. I don't know what the latest is with the actual what the city's gonna be doing. I understand, and I'll add one more thing, is that according to the water treatment plant, the purpose of this is to receive more water away from the existing intake that the Allen treatment plant pulls from, to try to improve the quality of water in the city of Inglewood. Apparently the current intake is off of not the Platte, but I believe Little Dry Creek, I believe. I cannot remember, do not recall. But anyway, the current intake for the Allen treatment plant contains water that is very hard in minerals, and they're trying to redirect around that. And they want to use the path of the city ditch to direct water further up, closer to the source.
And I don't want to belabor the point because I know we're kind of, at the end of the agenda, but, just kind of framing kind of how this is, there really isn't, kind of saying like fighting. That's not, this isn't a process fighting stuff. It's a consultation process, seeking comment from, there's automatic consulting parties, as well as, again, they should be identifying other interested parties. And so it doesn't stop anything from, the final say is the federal agency, and I forgot, this case, it's the EPA, how they take those comments and things like that. So it's not anything fighting to stop stuff. It's, making sure we have comments and the community is heard within this process. And again, maybe having a, kind of guiding what mitigation may be for any adverse effect.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we still have opportunity to comment on that, I think this would be a good opportunity for the Historic Preservation Commission also. So thank you for that, Lauren. That's huge. So I guess we'll see what happens with this. Okay, anything else? Mary, do you have anything to add?
No, I was actually thoroughly enjoying you guys' conversation about that. I'm very interested to hear how it turns out.
All right, thank you. All righty, I do believe I do not need to get a motion for adjournment. Is that correct, Eric?
Nope, you do.
I do. Okay.
Yep.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
All right.
Aye.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody. Time
All
is
right.
7 p.m.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.